Jen. Thanks so much for checking out my channel, Your Best Work Life. Here I talk about all things to help you craft the perfect resume, prepare for an interview, and really advance your career and achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Today I'm going to talk about how to go about formatting a resume and things to keep in mind when you are formatting or writing your resume. Number one, you want to be consistent. So however you decide to format your resume or lay out your experience, you want to be consistent. Use the same font throughout, use the same formatting. You want to keep it clean, clear, and concise. Number two, echoing what I said in my first statement, you want to be consistent with your formatting. So choose if you prefer to use bullet points or a summary format. Whatever you decide, make sure that carries through your entire resume. If you decide to use bullet points, which a lot of people like to do so they don't have to write out complete sentences, make sure that you're keeping that in mind. You don't have to write out a complete sentence. If you're using a bullet point, it should be a quick, concise thought. You do not need a period at the end. However, if you do decide that you want to do more of a summary format, make sure you are using complete sentences, correct punctuation. Again, be consistent. Choose whatever formatting makes the most sense for you, but be sure you are consistent throughout your entire resume. Number three, keep in mind past versus present tense. When you're putting together your resume, you typically talk through all the different work experiences that you've had, and you usually start, or you want to start, with your most recent experience on top. With your most recent experience, if you are currently employed, when you are describing that job or your responsibilities and what you've accomplished, you want to use the present tense because you are still in that job. You are still doing it day in and day out. So keep that in mind, present tense for your current position. When you are talking about your previous positions where you have moved on and you are no longer there, you want to be speaking in the past tense. That would be the grammatically correct way to articulate something that has happened in the past. So keep those things in mind as you're actually writing out either your bullet points or the summaries of each of your positions, but be consistent. Current job, present tense, previous jobs, past tense. Number four, decide if you want to use an objective. And if you want to include an objective, put it at the top of your resume. When using an objective, it is critical that that objective speaks to the value that you bring from your past experience and how that relates to the job or the company that you're applying for. So if you can't come up with a thoughtful and value-adding objective, just don't include one. An objective is not absolutely required. So make sure it's a meaningful statement if you're going to include it in your resume. If it's not worth the space. Again, you want to be as concise as possible, so everything on that resume should add value. Number five, after your objectives should come some kind of skills summary or a summary of key highlights and accomplishments from your previous experience. So you really want to be thoughtful about thinking through what strengths you have, what you've accomplished in previous positions, have you been recognized or received certain awards, did you exceed your sales quota, or whatever metrics you're held accountable to. Really think through all of those strengths, all those accomplishments, all of the skills that you bring to the table, and come up with a nice, concise summary of those skills. Again, here you can outline that in bullet point format, you can do summary format. Again, whatever you've decided, just be consistent. Number six, think about where you want to put your education. So if you have more than 10 years of experience, your education should go at the bottom of your resume. If you have less than 10 years of experience, then your education should be at the top of your resume after the objective and then that skills summary that we just talked about. So based on where you are in your career and your experience level, that will really determine where it makes the most sense to put your education on your resume. But the reason for that is that if you have more than 10 years of experience, in most cases, a hiring manager or a company really is going to care more about what you've actually done in your career as opposed to the theory and things that you've learned in school. When you're newer to your career, or if you have less than 10 years of experience, then usually you're going to be drawing more from your education as opposed to the experience that you have. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. So whatever makes most sense based on your experience level, that will dictate where you put education on your resume. Number 7, I touched on this briefly, but you want to put your most recent work experience at the top. So start with what's most recent and then work backwards from there. Again, companies care about what you're doing right now and what your most recent experience and skills have been. So put that closest to the top. That's what you want to articulate first. Number 8, make sure to use facts, figures, numbers, percentages, results. You want to use specific and impactful information. Kind of going back into that adding value. Everything on your resume should add value and speak to what you've actually accomplished. So wherever possible, use specific examples. If you are in sales and you have exceeded your quota year over year, use those percentages in there. Talk about the revenue that you've brought in, what you've generated, or what percent to goal you finished the year. Really highlight those things. And using facts, figures, percentages, numbers, metrics, all of those things is so much more impactful than just saying exceeded sales goal. Being able to say exceeded sales goal compared to exceeded sales goal by $50 million in revenue are two very different statements. So give some thought to that and really try to use as much concrete numbers, examples, results, use that as much as possible throughout your resume. Number 9, make sure you have a professional or at the very least appropriate email and voicemail. If you're putting yourself out there, you're getting your resume out there, applying to different jobs, trying to find your next opportunity, people are going to have to reach out to you in one way or the other, right? And in most cases, they're going to likely call and send you an email to try to set up a conversation or an interview or to find out about your level of interest in that company. So make sure you have a professional way that they can get in touch with you. Make sure your email's not, Miss Piggy Lover, 95 at gmail.com or whatever it is. Make sure it's something professional, ideally your name, but just make sure it's not something crazy in terms of your email. And then when it comes to your voicemail, I know there's a lot of different options in terms of ringback tones and whether you leave something funny on your voicemail or maybe it's a song or whatever the case may be. Just make sure it's nothing ridiculous. Again, you don't want something as small as what you say on your voicemail or what your email address is to hinder your chances of getting an interview and being considered to advance your career. Number 10, lastly, make sure to error check. I've talked about this repeatedly in the past, but grammatical errors, typos, any kind of thing like that has no place on your resume. Again, your resume is your first impression. Make sure it's a phenomenal one and there are no little things that a hiring manager will get hung up on and put you in the no pile. So please proofread your resume over and over again. Have somebody else look at your resume who hasn't seen it before. You really do want to have an objective set of eyes read through your resume because oftentimes we'll skim right over some of our mistakes because we know what we were trying to say. So proofread yourself multiple times, but have somebody else take a look at your resume as well and provide any feedback or point out any errors that you might need to go back and correct. So to recap on the 10 things that you should keep in mind as you're formatting your resume and putting that together, let's run through them again one more time. Number 1, be consistent. Decide what you want to do in terms of your formatting and how you want to write out your experience and be consistent. Number 2, tying into that, choose bullet points or summary format. So do you want to use more paragraph style with complete sentences and periods at the end? Or do you want to have bullet points with quick, concise statements articulating what you've accomplished in your previous experience? You decide, but again, be consistent throughout your resume. Number 3, make sure you're using the past tense when you're talking about previous work experience and the present tense when you're talking about what you're doing right now. Number 4, if you decide to include an objective, make sure it adds value. And that objective should go right at the top of your resume and speak to what you bring to the table and how it relates to the job you're applying for. Number 5, after your objective should be your skills or highlight summary to quickly communicate some of the greatest strengths that you bring to the table. Number 6, remember that if you have less than 10 years of experience, your education should go towards the top of your resume above your work history. Number 7, make sure to start with your most recent work history on top and work backwards from there. Number 8, use facts, figures, numbers, and percentages wherever possible throughout your resume. Number 9, make sure you have a professional and appropriate email and voicemail set up so that when all those calls start flowing in for interviews, you're ready and they're not turned off by some weird voicemail or unprofessional email address. And number 10, make sure to error check. Proofread, proofread, proofread. That goes for your resume, for applications, thank you notes, follow-up emails, anything in between. Make sure there are never any grammatical errors, because you don't want something like that to be the reason that you're not chosen for an interview or the reason you don't get the job. I hope this video was helpful for you today in how to format your resume and things to keep in mind as you're building out a resume. If this was helpful, please like and comment below and subscribe to my channel so you get notifications about all my latest videos. If there's something specific that you need help with in terms of career advice, resume, interview preparedness, drop it in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you. I'm Jen. Thanks so much for checking out Your Best Work Life.